Oh, hi there. You just caught me coming back from my algae pond. My algae babies are looking great. Would you be interested in learning about algal biofuels today? Well then follow me. Hi, welcome to my office. My name is Professor Albert Gallagher, or Al-G for short. Ever since receiving my PhDs from Stanford, Harvard, and Yale, I've decided that I've always been looking for the next innovation or next big thing. With gasoline prices skyrocketing and the current energy crisis we're in, I found that alternative fuels are definitely the place to look. I've found that algae biofuels are the next up-and-coming fuel, and I'm very excited to explore this topic more. The whole story starts with tons of little tiny plant-like organisms that make up the algae family. There are over 100,000 different types of species in the algae family, ranging from tiny protozoa to huge bunches of seaweed floating in the ocean. Algae grow naturally all over the world, and under ideal conditions, they can grow rapidly and in enormous quantities without disrupting food patterns or natural habitats. Half of algae, by weight, is made up of lipid oil, which can be transformed into biodiesel, which is a great fuel that can be burned cleaner and more efficiently than petroleum. Of the many different types of algae, pond algae that grows on top of a still body of water is best suited for biodiesel. This can either be grown outdoors or indoors. These days, there are 4 main methods to grow this type of algae: open pond growing, vertical closed loop, tank bioreactors, or fermentation. Once the algae is grown, the lipid oil can be extracted from the cell walls. To hear more about this process, let's consult my friend and colleague, Dr. Ann Urgi. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ann.
I believe that biofuels provide the most usable and accessible form of energy, and in the case of algal biodiesel, can be grown and produced in a land-efficient manner that does not disrupt world food production or destroy natural habitats.
Our viewers have learned some basic facts about algae and the biofuel it creates. But can you tell us a little bit about the processes of extracting the lipid oil from the algae plants?
Well, Al, there are 3 main methods that are currently used: the oil press method, the hexane solvent method, and the supercritical fluids method. The oil press method is similar to olive press. The algae plants are pressed tightly and the oil is squeezed out of the algae.
It smells good, but not as good as my algae. So after talking to my friend Dr. Ann, I decided to look more into the statistics of biodiesel fuel. It's quite impressive. Let me share some of the facts with you.
When producing oil, the algae takes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and releases oxygen as a byproduct. For this reason, many algal biofuel plants are placed next to large factories, especially electricity factories, and take in much of the CO2 that these factories give off. In this way, the algae can reduce carbon emissions by not only replacing carbon-based fossil fuels, but by removing and using carbon dioxide that would otherwise pollute the air.
Welcome to Office Hours. I understand that all of you are very curious about my last lecture on algal biofuels. Does anyone remember which companies have been looking at algal biofuels? Veronica? Tiffany?
Algico? Wait.
That's not a company.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Many companies have begun to invest in algal biofuels. Currently, the 3 major players investing in algal biofuels are ExxonMobil, Solazyme, and Sapphire Energy. Who knows what these companies do? Yes.
ExxonMobil? Don't they mainly sell gasoline?
ExxonMobil partnered with Synthetic Genomics in July of 2009. They have worked on using different algal strains and growing conditions for optimal growth. In July of 2010, they opened a new greenhouse to better imitate real-world growing conditions of algae, as they had been using only a laboratory before.
Oh, I see. What about the other companies that you mentioned?
Solazyme has been looking at using algae not only for fuel, but for other products that are similar to petroleum-based products. Solazyme has even begun to create algae-based food ingredients to be used as healthier alternatives. The technology that they use to create oil from algae is very interesting. Solazyme uses a microalgae that is heterotrophic meaning that it grows in the dark with fermenters and consumes sugars from plants that have already absorbed the sun's energy. They can accelerate the microalgae's natural oil production to just a few days.
Wow, that's really cool. So we can use algae to make not only fuel, but we can eat it too? That's... ew.
That's gross.
You might have already eaten it. Lastly, let's take a look at Sapphire Energy. They have created what they call green crude, which is a renewable crude oil that can work within the existing infrastructure of refinement, as it yields a drop-in replacement transportation fuel. They produced algae in open algae ponds, then harvest and extract before refining it. Sapphire Energy's green crude is a very interesting concept.
All of these companies are based in the US, right? Are there any other countries that are looking at algal biofuels?
That is a great question. For that, I will turn to my international colleague, Professor Veronica Chau.
Most of the work done in the field of algae biofuels to this point has been by algae fuel producers similar to Solazyme and Sapphire Energy. These places include, but are not limited to, Israel, France, Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, Argentina, Canada, Mexico, Australia, and New Zealand.
The use of algae biofuels has many important environmental impacts. We will explore some of these impacts further and some possible concerns.
Let's look at the environmental benefits first. Algae can be grown on land and water that may be unsuitable for plant or food production. Some species of algae don't even need to be altered to produce bio-oils, as it is a natural process of photosynthesis. Algae can yield more than 2,000 gallons of fuel per acre per year of production, and this is compared to 650 gallons per acre per year from palm and 258 gallons per year from corn. But what are the downsides of algae biofuels? Currently producing algae biofuels on a commercial level is very expensive, which makes it hard to be commercially viable. Other issues include contamination of open algae ponds of different species and viral infections.
However, I'd like to learn more about the benefits and concerns from experts. Let's ask some colleagues of mine. Here is UC San Diego's Stephen Mayfield, who's known as an algae guru based on his 22 years of work in the algae field.
Well, so it'll be different in a couple of really important ways. The first way is that the fuel that we get from algae is what we call fungible fuel. That means it's a direct replacement for the petroleum we use now. So the fuels we'll derive from algae will be diesel, will be gasoline, and will be jet fuel. So ethanol is not any of those, and that we can add to fuels, and we do right now at about 5%. But as soon as you go above 5%, they have an unwanted characteristic in that they bring water along with them. And when they do that, that completely changes the way your engine runs. It causes them to rust.
Now let's ask Steve Kay, director of UC San Diego's Department of Biological Studies.
Algae grow incredibly fast, making it amazingly productive. It is the most promising source of renewable transportation fuel that we have today, far more efficient than ethanol.
Do you want to see a movie with me tonight? Yeah, wait. Our PSET's due tomorrow.
The one on economic viabilities of algal biofuels?
Yeah, oh, we should talk to Professor Algae while he's still here. I bet we can catch him still.
Oh.
Wait, Professor Algae! Professor Algae!
Whoa, hello.
We still have some more questions to ask you.
On the economic viability of algal biofuels.
Okay, well, walk with me. We'll talk about it.
Ultimately, the economic viability of algal biofuels will depend on the market and the price of fossil fuels. As crude oil prices increase, algal biofuels will then become more commercially viable. In order for algae to become cost competitive with fossil fuels, we must find ways to reduce costs and increase productivity. Algal productivity is one of the greatest determinants in the economic feasibility of algal biofuels, as it determines how much yield algal biofuel farm systems produce.
What sort of costs are we looking at?
Well, we have capital costs and operations and maintenance costs, which make up a large portion of the algal biofuel production costs. The capital costs are usually broken down into costs associated with the algal biomass growth, harvesting, dewatering, and algal oil extraction systems. Operations and maintenance costs generally include expenses for nutrients, carbon dioxide distribution, labor costs, utilities, and water supply. In addition to operations and maintenance costs, we also have costs of land.
Have any estimates of these costs been made?
Yes, a recent assessment by the Sandia National Laboratories and National Renewable Energy Laboratory concluded that the average capital costs are roughly $57,000 per acre, and operations and maintenance costs are $27,000 per acre.
These cost estimates seem pretty high.
Exactly. Cost is a major barrier for the commercial viability of algal fuels. Unless there is technological development to reduce these costs, the challenge is to achieve high productivity. Let's assume that a currently achievable productivity is about 50 tons per acre per year and has a 25% oil content. This produces a yield of about 1,500 gallons per acre per year. Even at a price of $4 per gallon of raw oil, this productivity rate would not cover the average costs, assuming a 20% per year of capital charge.
Technologies must be developed to increase productivity and reduce costs. This can only be accomplished through
More funding.
You're absolutely right.
Because of the increasing concern over peak oil, energy security, greenhouse gas emissions, and the potential of crop-based biofuels competing with food security, who wouldn't want to invest in algae? In 2009, the Department of Energy invested a total of $85 million, which is currently supporting more than 30 algae-based biofuel projects. The same year, ExxonMobil announced $600 million in research and development as a joint effort with Synthetic Genomics. In addition, numerous venture capital firms have made substantial investments in algal fuel companies in the past years. Even the president loves the idea of algae biofuels.
We're making new investments in the development of gasoline and diesel and jet fuel that's actually made from a plant-like substance. Algae. You got a bunch of algae out here, right? If we can figure out how to make energy out of that, we'll be doing all right. Believe it or not, we could replace up to 17% of the oil we import for transportation with this fuel that we can grow right here in the United States.
Wow, there's so much support to make algae fuel production commercially viable.
Yes, with continuous political support and public interest in algal biofuels, it will be the energy source of the future.